Hello and welcome to another artist talk with Women United Art Movement. I'm really excited about having you here, Lillian. Welcome here. I'm just going to briefly introduce myself and the platform. So, Women United Art Movement was founded in 2021, in the fall of 2021, as a result of our art prize, the first year of our international art prize called Women United Art Prize, which is actually ending tomorrow. The third year is ending tomorrow, which is really exciting. And my name is Mona Lerch. I'm the founder. I'm the main person behind all the endeavors that happen at the platform. And I'm really excited about these solo shows and the artist talks because I come across a lot of art when I research artists, when I receive their submissions as well. We have a beautiful directory. Um, and so I get to learn a lot about the artists, but there's nothing like the artist talk when we actually get to talk together and explore the art in more depth. And I get to learn a lot about behind the scenes of those works that I see all the time, which is super excited because then there are these connections made, and people who come and listen to these talks, they get to ask questions as well, which is amazing, and they get to explore a little more of the artist's work. So today we have Lillian Aguinaga here with us, and her solo show is called Exposed in Umbra. And I'm really excited about that because I absolutely adore Lillian's style and her work, because I recently became
Yeah.
a figurative artist as well. So it always amazes me,
Yay.
seeing work of other people who focus on the female form, especially. And so Lillian is a Peruvian American figurative painter based in New Orleans, Louisiana. She received her BFA in painting from the University of Louisiana in 2010, and her Peruvian influences combined with being raised by a single mother in the southern United States give Lillian a unique perspective on culture and identity. Lillian's striking workplaces focus on the fear of the unknown, the pursuit of belonging and individuality, as well as perseverance in the face of great uncertainty. Lillian, welcome here. The floor is yours. If you
Thank you.
introduce yourself a little better than what I did, a little bit more.
I feel like I've rewritten that bio so many times. Yes, I'm Lillian Aguinaga, and thanks for not butchering my name, because that happens a lot. Yeah, so I was actually raised in Memphis by my mom, she's from Memphis, and my father, he's from Peru. But would travel to Lima, which is where half my family is, once a year, and stay for a month at a time. So it was interesting growing up. And just for perspective, I'm 38. So that's how geriatric millennial is what we call it. But yeah, so as far as being raised in the the southern United States, that I really take from the individuality, like of where I belong, because I've just always kind of struggled with it my entire life. And so a lot of the painting is kind of introspective about that, as well as highly influenced by, I was raised by a really like strong like woman. So my mom, and then her mom, who I call her Lady Vivian. She's my grandmother, but long story, but that's what I call her. But they were both, really strong women that, especially my mom that raised me. And in Peru, my abuela, Esperanza, she's also strong. She's like the matriarch. She's the glue of the family. So lots of influence by the women in my family. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard to describe without saying this painting or this painting, but basically I use a lot of the female form. My process is, I start with photography actually, and I use models, and every piece transforms based on the model. I have a concept and I ask them, I'll direct them, but a lot of times it just organically, like the finer theme of each painting develops based on my rapport with the model and everything, down to the colors and everything. But I set up all the color lighting, like the photographs, very similar to the painting. So, but yeah. So I guess I've been painting since I was a child. Yes, my grandmother, Lady Vivian, she's an artist as well, and so I've always been drawing and painting, and I'm really into music. And when I was a kid, I think I hit ninth grade, and I decided, because I was playing guitar, and I was like, Lillian, you have to choose one or the other. I don't know why I did that to myself, but I chose art. So, yeah, so here I am.
Thank you so much for sharing. And we're the same age actually, which is exciting.
All right. All right. So you know the struggles of our generation.
Oh, yes. Yes. I was actually talking yesterday at the artist talk. I was talking with Kimberly, and I was telling her, with the technology and everything, we were discussing that, and I was like, when I see my son who's 5, he's so like everything is so intuitive for him. And while I didn't grow up with a computer or with internet or anything, so
Right.
I learned everything as I go, which is like fun in a way but not at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely so. And just things, yeah. Things, yeah. What is it? When you call waiting, even the whole, you remember call waiting? Like even when that developed, that was like a big thing, where you could hear somebody beep in on the other line, things like that. Not that that's a little trivial, but I mean, there's just those things I think about. Even with art and AI, when I talk about intuitive, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, start thinking about art, so I start looking at reference photos just because I'm a little neurotic like that with art. But that happened to me last night, and lots of AI things kept coming up, and I was just like, man, is it gonna just be all that in the future? I don't know. That's a whole different discussion, but it's been on my mind today.
Hopefully not, because I don't know what I will do with my
I
art.
know. Well, I wouldn't survive with that. I have to be painting. So, but yeah, definitely an interesting generation with the bridge of, very, like you said, intuitive technology and, not much, just knocking on your neighbor's door to hang out and play till dusk.
Yeah. All right, so let's have a look at your show. I hope you can see my screen. Yes. All right, so if you can maybe tell us a little bit about the title.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple, like exposed. So this painting series that I've been developing since the early 2022, basically, is called Hidden in Plain Sight. And so this is basically just another version of saying that. So exposed, so being seen in a shadow. So it's kind of just to simplify it. But shadows are a huge theme, that visually and metaphorically speaking, in my art. So that's what that is. And that is the title piece to the series, Hidden in Plain Sight. And that is the piece that kind of that's when I knew that this is the direction I was going to go in. I created so like I said before, the photography process it's gotten very important in the entire process, creation of the creations of the paintings. But this was a test shot, and this is a self-portrait. It was a test shot that I did. And at this time I was, I guess I'll back it up and say this series is very much about grief. So this kind of spawned out of a lot of grief that I was having, loss of people that were important to me, my dog who was like a son to me, all these things coming out of, well, we were still in the, however you want to say it, the pandemic, just all that um, in one, and it just kind of got overwhelming at some point. And so, like I said, this was a test shot, the photo, and then I decided to paint it. Just I really loved the colors and everything, and as I was painting it, it just became, there were things that were very symbolic to me that I just started seeing through this. So, for instance, the ring that I'm wearing in that portrait is it's a ring that's it was commissioned by it was commissioned I commissioned it to create it was basically a memorial for somebody that I lost that is very, very important to me. Actually, a friend of mine did that. She's an amazing silversmith, Katie Fink. But anyway, so as I was painting it, I realized I'm painting my grief out, you know? And so I decided, oh, well, this, I can't keep it in any longer in my art. So I need to keep moving forward. So this painting is the first one, and it's actually hanging in my studio right now. And it's a self-portrait. I never hang on to art for myself, but this was just so personal and just, you know, it was mine. And yeah. So yeah, that's that one. Yes, so this is Dichotomy of Waiting, and this is the only double portrait that I have in this series right now. But and this is a combination of a couple of photographs, but it's basically our response to waiting and seeing what's going to happen. So we persevere, you know, we try to persevere in uncertain times. And so there's different, each figure is conveying a different expression. One is more of a longing, and then one is just like, screw this, I'm moving on kind of thing. So the Dichotomy of Waiting is basically just two people, both strong, and their reaction to the unknown, you know, what is uncertain in our future, maybe how we feel in reaction to a loss, basically. Okay, yeah. So this one in the middle is Waning, and this is basically when you're just melting because you're just like shrouded in maybe negative thoughts, depression, emotions, and sometimes we can't just put on that, you know, smile and go throughout the day. Sometimes you literally melt in the shower. And so it's basically like a flood of thoughts, of negative thoughts. And there's even a detail, if you close up in her hand, and the hand is not even fully painted, fully rendered. Yeah. So it's just basically dissipating. And that's the way that it's just a strong emotion of, you know, kind of being washed away and dissipating. I think it's interesting because these paintings are very brightly colored, but especially this series, it's pretty dark, you know? So as I'm talking about it, this is when you're severely depressed. Okay, that's Shadows to the Unseen. Also about this one is, in addition to about grief, it's looking into ourselves when we're experiencing different emotions. And I don't know, there's a thing that I've been playing around with that I will continue in my paintings, but like I showed you, the hand is not fully rendered in that the last painting, and it's the same here, where if you close up, not her right but her left hand, you can see it's an outline versus the fully rendered hand, which is on the right. And so there's details like that that I like to play around with. So she's looking into herself, into the mirror, basically not melting, but just looking inward. Yeah, just looking inward and looking at all those emotions. Oh, you know what I forgot to ask you is which piece is your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I think this one that just came up, it's
Oh,
just,
really? Okay.
yeah, there's something magical about the gaze. I don't know.
About the what? The
About
face? Yes, the
the gaze,
face.
like her
This
eye.
the gaze. I gotcha. Yeah, this one I really like because it looks to me it's hard for me to, step back and not be biased because I know what these are about in my head, but like to me, if I saw this, it's actually a little bit powerful, right? And almost um like I feel like she's exuding a strength. And the one when I was talking earlier about certain about models and how I every piece is different, tends to be different. I mean, every once in a while it won't be, but this model in particular is a really close friend of mine, Bella, and when I'm work with her, it's just like magic happens on the canvas, because and especially this photo shoot in particular, um, she when you meet her, she exudes strength. Like you think like this is a strong, badass woman. And she is. But also as strong, badass women, we go through stuff, and so we sometimes we put on a face, a lot of times we do actually, in order to survive. Um, and so I found that a few of the paintings from this photo shoot with Bella were kind of had that idea about it. It's our way of survival. I mean, I've not to say it's incredibly healthy to do that all the time, but you have to function in the world. So we do put on this kind of this image. But even if something's going horribly bad in our lives. But so this is Solace and Desolation, like I said, and basically she finds solace in, maybe isolating, but sometimes when we isolate too much, then that's really bad. I mean, I've definitely am like that, considering my studio is in my home. So I don't know about yours, but leaving, sometimes you have to make yourself leave the house, basically. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what this one is about. But I really loved how the colors did kind of split her face, and then with the shadows. And oftentimes with, like I said, the photography process, these shadows will be on the walls, but a lot of times I'll exaggerate them. And I like the one on the left, how it looks kind of like it's creeping over her a little bit. So, yeah. Okay, well, that's a self-portrait as well. And that one is called Everything is Fine. So it's this is one of the more recent ones in the series. And it's basically, when if somebody asks you, what's wrong? You're like, everything is fine. Or you tell yourself, everything is fine. When everything's not fine, and you feel like you're actually suffocating, and a lot of times, like I was talking about earlier, we can hide those emotions, like we can hide in those shadows, but it's pretty apparent um at some point. You can't always hide it, you can't always put on that face. And so yeah, this one is like plastic. Like I put myself in a plastic bag and made it look like I was kind of choking myself. And I didn't realize how morbid it was until uh, somebody I know was asking me about images to use for an article. And I sent her, I was like, use this painting. And she's like, oh, I love it. But this is a little bit more PG this magazine that I'm doing? And I was like, huh? And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. It looks like I'm choking myself, of course. Like, oops. But this is actually one of my favorites because I feel like there's a little bit of a dark humor in it, which I have a little bit of. So this is actually more of a direction I want to continue to go with a little bit of that dark humor. I guess a little bit of morbid, but yeah. I mean, you can relate, everybody can relate to this one, I'm sure. It's like, yep, everything's fine. Oh, so this one's the chameleon. I blanked for a moment. The chameleon effect. And the chameleon effect is it's a phrase that's used to when people start imitating others to kind of fit in. If you've ever hung out with a certain like somebody for so long and they pronounce certain words a certain way or have a certain slang, you kind of pick that up. And sometimes it's, you don't necessarily think you're doing it. And this was kind of more about individuality, and where we're belonging. So they're putting on or taking off, with your interpretation, if it was me, I would say they're taking off their hat. So they're finally be able to not act to fit in or to portray themselves a certain way, which goes back to putting on a face when you're in that survival mode. And it's, if you ever gone out, I don't know, everybody has a social tolerance. I feel like mine's kind of medium sometimes, but there, are times where I go out and perhaps it was an event, maybe an art thing or vending, and I just really didn't want to be around people or just felt social. Then as soon as I like get in the house, I like take my purse off, kick off my shoes, and I just like crash on the couch or something. So that's kind of this feeling of taking off their hat, and the chameleon effect. Yes. But I love the shadow. This hat is, this is interesting. This hat is it's a disco hat. It's gold sequins that's kind of holographic. And I got it when I was recently in Peru over Christmas time. Was in Lima, and they were celebrating New Year's Eve. And when you celebrate New Year's Eve, you have to have everything yellow. So there's a lot of yellow and gold. And they picked this up at a little corner store. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm leaving this hat. I'm packing this hat. So it is actually part of the display in my house now. I love that hat. Okay, this one is Temple. And this one, this when I was talking about the other painting where you could see the tiles called waning and just kind of melting, this one, for me, temple is a sacred space. And so when I'm a lot of times, and I know this is a lot of people feel like this, but I'll be in the shower and you will feel like things are washing away, your emotions are washing away. It's therapeutic. Sometimes you think of your good ideas, sometimes you like sing it out, belt it out that you normally wouldn't do outside the shower, whatever it is. But so this is the subject is finding basically trying to feel like they have a place where they can just wash it away. So almost like a safe space, like their own space. So that is what this one is about.
And I love the tiles here. They look almost like real, like if it was a photo.
Yeah, well, so it's interesting because thank you, but and it happened in this one and the other one too, because I mean, sometimes when I paint, I don't prefer to paint. Like I do not like painting cityscapes, hard lines, or not hard lines, but structures. Not that I can't paint perspective or anything like that, but I obviously like flesh. I love flesh, painting flesh, and try to paint looser, even though it doesn't end up like that sometimes. But this one I thought was really cool because it's the tiles almost look like they're closing in on you, just like the other one. She was in the corner, and especially it almost looks like they're twisting towards the bottom. And at first I was like, I don't know if I like this. And then I was like, wait, I really do like this. And in addition, her hand is very small compared to her face. Now, it's funny because when I paint hands, sometimes I have to go, I'm like, this looks wrong. This thumb looks really long. Why is this thumb so long? And I'll look at the photo and it's correct. And then I'll have to call whoever model. I was like, are you like, do you have like a long thumb or something? And which has definitely happened before. But this model in particular, when she saw this painting and I was talking to her about it, and she was giving me her interpretation, her feedback of the way it made her feel, which is also a whole nother thing when it comes to this painting I didn't even mention before. But anyway, she was like, and you got my small hands. And I was like, what? And I was like, okay, thankfully I'm not going crazy because, so I thought that's pretty interesting about that. That's just a little fun fact about that painting. The model she put her hand up to her head and it's like half of her face versus if you put your hand up, it's going to cover your whole face. So, but that's the beauty of working with different models, everybody brings something different, including small hands and long thumbs. So this one is Through the Veil, Para la Meña. And this one is basically almost like a hiding, well, it is hiding, but being shrouded and hiding. And after I painted this, I actually it was one of the models that we haven't come to her painting yet, but Caro, she's Peruvian as well. But she said, this reminds me of the Para la Meña. And I had no idea what that was. And I started reading about it. And basically it was in the 1500s, there were Peruvian aristocrats, but they would have shrouds around them and they would only expose an eye. And the Catholic Church ended up forbidding it because they thought perhaps that there was like transvestism going on, things like that. But the people that were doing, women mainly, but that I know of, we don't know, but they gave them a sense of freedom because you couldn't tell who they were. I mean, they were covered in head to toe, but they would only expose one eye. And so it kind of gave them a freedom where they could, leave at night, almost feel safe, which is really interesting. You cover yourself up and you feel safe. Yeah, so there's a lot more to that story, but whenever Caro told me about that, I thought, how cool is that? And so of course then I asked her to this is before she modeled for me, and I was like, hey, do you want to model? And also when we do come to her painting, it is to Para la Meña as well. So but that one is further down the line. And the reason why I use like this one is Every Moment in Reticence. The reason why I like to use I call them shrouds, but veils, sometimes see-through, sometimes a little bit, maybe like translucent rather, but is because it also has this, it's metaphorical to being shrouded in your own stuff, basically. So, grief or emotions or uncertainty. So that's this one. And so she's kind of being pensive and wanting to perhaps peek out from beyond that veil or peek around the corner. So that's just kind of capturing that moment in time. So which a lot of these are capturing moments, like a very intimate moment. So that one's Every Moment in Reticence. Yes. So this one's the very recent. So when I was talking about that self-portrait, Everything is Fine. So this one, after I created that, I was like, oh, I want to create more. So this is another one. It's called It's in the Bag. And it's another one that is, you're being pushed and pulled, and you're basically almost suffocating, being in whatever you're going through. Um, and but it can be, I feel like it's at this point where you like again, like the other painting, everything is fine. If you tell someone everything is fine and they see right through it, it's basically this is a continuation of that. But I liked the title, It's in the Bag, because I thought it was funny. But I really like using this plastic because of the way I can manipulate the colors on it, and the shadows that it can create. So I'm definitely, yeah, I can't wait to create more with that kind of idea, especially with more of that plastic bag. I have to get my models to get in plastic bags now, so I think some of them will be okay. Let's see. This one is Transfixed. This is also, so this one and It's in the Bag are the most recent paintings that I've completed. And this one is so she is transfixed, can go both ways. It can be the viewer is transfixed, but she's also transfixed in her own shroud of whatever she is going through. And this is a little bit more, I feel like it's for me, the darker ones that are, as in, the darker background and the shadows being darker, remind me a little bit more of mortality. So I would imagine that, she's definitely shrouded in grief. And mortality and grief doesn't necessarily mean the loss of life. It can be, the end of a relationship. It can be, and I'm like a missed opportunity, and especially when our rights are taken away from us. And I think no, knowing this model, and whenever she did model for me, I think every part of that she encompassed in this photo shoot, because I do personally know what was going on and at the time, and Emily. But yeah, so this one is her being transfixed in her own emotions and wherever she is in life. But also, it's a play because when you see this, it stops you, and having the hand extended like that, it's almost like halt, so you are stopped. So you transfix on this figure. So this is Repose, and this one is very much about mortality and not, like I said, not necessarily the loss of life, which this can be, but sometimes you just feel like you can't go on anymore. And so it's almost, I staged her with to almost look like she was at her own funeral, in a way, but it's very vulnerable because whenever I'm use nudity, it creates a sense of vulnerability, just because not all of my paintings have nudity in them. So I think I use that to create a little bit more of that vulnerability. So it's her own kind of it's she feels like she can't go on any longer. So she's, kind of resting, eternal rest, basically, in her mind. Yes. This one was Tapata La Minya. So I kind of went over that with the small self-portrait, but I wanted to use that brightly colored red, just because it's just so striking. And that's what I imagine that the Peruvian women, how looking over their shoulder, giving that glance and feeling almost like they have the power because they are um, because they're able to, like I said, walk about more freely because you don't see who they are. So you can't go tell their husbands, your wives were walking out at night, you know, like they, because you don't know who it is, which would get them in trouble back then. One really cool thing about that, about the Tepatalameñas is they, um, in protest of the Catholic Church, whenever they forbid them to stay shrouded, whenever they wanted them to uh, show their faces and everything, they, instead of, you know, like we go and protest with signs, they actually just stopped cooking meals for their husbands. They just stopped doing their wifely duties. Or you say that. And I can't remember if it was a very short period of time where everybody's like, all right, let them do it, you know? And I think that is so freaking cool, you know? So the Tepatala minions are it's inspirational in a way. It very much goes back to being raised by powerful women, and individuality, you know, very much so. So, mhm. Oh, yeah. This one is very this one is interesting because it's very, let me think. It's just it's very vulnerable, um because this one's called What I've Endured. It's very vulnerable because she's kind of laid out and almost just where, but she has this powerful, or a stern face, basically. So she's been through it. She's been through it. And then she's got, I wanted the red to be prominent because to me, it's like a powerful, draw you in color. I also just love it. But so it's very striking. And basically, this one's about what she's been through so much, but she's still here. She's survived, and she's going to keep going. And the flowers, I haven't mentioned the symbolism of flowers when I use those, but they're just basically like some of them are, it looks like they're upside down, but they're actually laying flat. But it's just, they're flowers that have been picked and they're starting to maybe die or dry up. So yeah, it may feel like that, but she's gonna keep going. Okay, this is The Longing. And I'll just have to say that my favorite part about this painting is that shadow. Like when I created that shadow from the rose, I was like, this is so great. But yeah, so The Longing is basically, she has a very a look that she's longing for something. So whatever it is that she's lost, she's longing for. I know we think of that whole the and this isn't like this, but I did using that rose. It's a dark rose, so it's almost like symbolism is with death. But another thing is picking the petals, like he loves me not, except sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be he loves me, he loves me not. Like it could be something else, like, you know, um, I will live, I will die. I mean, I know that sounds really it might be a little bit morbid, but it's kind of like that game. And holding one single rose, it's a little bit about mortality with the darkness of it, and then longing for something that they've lost or someone that they've lost. Okay, that is another self-portrait. I use myself as a model a lot because a lot of times it's just easier because you're there. I think a lot of artists understand that, especially if you need a paint from life, you just throw up a mirror and you're there. Um, so this one's in the shadows, and this one was created. around the time that I created that very first one, Hidden in Plain Sight, and it has a very similar idea behind it. It's about me melting into my own shadow with grief, because that shadow is so prominent that it's almost overtaking the figure. And I basically have mostly manipulated colors, except for just like that first one in Hidden in Plain Sight with the ring. Those colors are not, I don't heavily saturate those. They're painted more lifelike, just like this one, that pendant is, because it is also, it's the matching piece to the set of the that I have that memorializes that certain somebody. But yeah, so this one is, you know, me and my own shadows and not being able to face the viewer, not being able to face anything. I guess it's like different stages of grief, you know. So going through these and talking to them, like talking about them has made me realize the timeline of me creating some of these. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, I see what's going on here. So thanks, Mona.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So this is the thousand yard stare, and thousand yard stare is a phrase that a lot of times is used in regards to um, people that are in war, and they just blank out in the middle of, you know, warfare, basically. But also it's to me, for her, because she's just kind of almost numb. She's almost numb. Something's happened and she's just numb right now. So this is also part of that timeline of, I guess, the stages of grief. And a lot of times, and this one thing I haven't painted a lot of is that numbness feeling. So that's basically what this one is. Yes. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Let me just switch to the gallery view. Because it's one thing to like look at the work, and then obviously I saw the description of each piece when I was installing it, but still, like when you talk about it, it's a completely different layer. And I have a lot of questions, but I don't know
Sure.
if Renee, do you want to ask anything, or should I just fire away?
You can fire away.
So,
Hi, Renee.
Hi, baby.
That's my best friend.
cool, amazing. I love that. Like, I love when like family members or best friends come, because you know, like they also they know a lot, but sometimes maybe they can learn a little more as well, because you know we don't really talk about like our art that much, or I don't, you know, explain my art to my friends at all. So sometimes it's really cool to like see other people who are close to the artist to join. I wanted to ask you, um, first of all, when you started painting figurative pieces, why do you paint women? Is it because of your background and the strong women you have in your family? Is it that influence? Is it a celebration of that? Or do you have any other reason? Because I do women as well.
I would
like,
say
I've never painted a man in my life, so
you know, I didn't have a lot of great male figures. I mean, I have some great uncles, but not anybody that was daily. And so that could probably be part of it. That doesn't mean I won't. I've definitely talked to a couple of men that I would like to paint, but I have more of a connection with a woman, you know, because I have, yeah. I mean, especially with a series like, I mean, I know you asked about initially, but first, particularly for this series, I mean, we were talking about grief and our, you know, how our rights being taken away. That is pretty heavy on my mind all the time, and so I don't really want to paint a man unless it's maybe not putting them in good light or something. Well, some of them, but Yeah, and I mean, I think the female form is really beautiful too in all different ways. And but it's not just, I don't paint all like, well, I guess at most everybody. There was one non-binary model that I recently used, and the chameleon effect. Um, and yeah, so, but that's probably it. Just subconsciously, and then just really liking that form. Yeah.
And I love your use of color. And I love that sometimes like you can see, obviously like in the monitor it's different than when you see it live. But I love the pink undertones that you can like see in the fabric and sometimes like around the features, like the figurative stuff, figurative elements. Tell me a little bit more about your color palette, like how, when you started painting this series, like how did you decide that this is what it's going to look like? Because they, they match together so
Yeah.
beautifully, even though you use different shades sometimes, it's still that sort of one color palette. Is there any like
Um,
significance to that?
I really love the use of vivid colors and cinematography. And so I think that maybe just my love of that, I a lot of ways this series pretty much developed organically with a few, decisive things before I even started it. And I was already starting to incorporate more saturated color into the series before this. It's funny because when I first started painting forms, I was using muted color. Like I showed you something from 2016. It's very muted colors. They're still pretty, but it's just like, it's kind of funny to go from there to here. And as I was experimenting, I realized that I could paint it better because I can see what's going on if I created it through photography first, because you paint what you see. And a lot of times I'll manipulate it like in Photoshop but not much. There's not like a ton of editing. I don't, geriatric millennial, I'm not that great at Photoshop. But yeah, so I think having those lights, kind of noting with different models, this is the lighting I used for this one, this is the lighting I used for this one, and seeing what worked best, and also certain decisions on like the repose one, it's blues and purples, like there's not really any there's not a ton of like warm yellows and oranges. It's like keeps it very moody versus Temple, like she's just like hot on fire, like desperate to have something cool to wash her away. And Temple's the one with the profile in with the tiles, like in the shower. So, but yeah, so basically using those colors in the photography and just noting which ones I like at each painting. Each time I have a photo shoot, I note like, I really love this color combination, or I really love this one. And so that way I can continue to use it. And they still kind of develop, and I think I will actually start manipulating it, even like editing it even more in Photoshop, just because it can make it interesting layering different colors. Like I did that with It's in the Bag, which is the self-portrait of where she's pulling, that's where I'm pulling the plastic bag. I added a lot of color in Photoshop, not a lot, but yeah. And then I exaggerate or sometimes even mute some things when I'm painting it in real life. But I think that's how I keep that color palette consistent. And my eyes are so tired after painting sometimes because they're so saturated. I feel like I'm going cross-eyed sometimes. But it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
It's funny that you mentioned that you painted in like softer tones before. I had an artist friend who told me once, when she saw I started with abstract pieces and then moved into figurative, and all I used were like nudes and like those like soft pastel tones because it just brings me peace. Like I'm not a big, even my clothes is boring. So I remember she said, "Oh, you're the artist who doesn't like color," and I was like, "What?" And
Okay, no, that's not true.
it was like, what?
I'm
Because her pieces are like vivid, you know, like these like bright colors all mixed up together. And I'm more like, okay, I will use like three different colors, but with different like shades, and you know, and then I started painting figurative pieces, and it was similar. But then I was like, okay, let's go crazy and do blue hair, you know, instead of regular color. Or like my recent piece that is not finished, I'm using like red, white and red like stripes in the background, which is like
nice.
wild for me. But I love, you know, like that moment when you're like, okay, am I going to do it or not? Like, am I going to like really use red, which I've never used before, you know, in my pieces? And I love when there is this transformation and you can go back and you see your previous work and how you become bolder with your pieces as well. So I would really love to, like, if you have them on your Instagram, I will check it out. Like if you have your older pieces there, or just send me a photo.
I'll send you. I have it on my website. If it's on my Instagram, it's like way down there. But you know, when you're talking about whoever said, oh, you're the artist that doesn't like color. The thing is, to get those muted colors, you have to mix a lot of color. You know, so my favorite color is actually gray, and you see how bright my paintings are, and it's because I love that you can mix. You can have, there's so many different grays. I just think it's so beautiful. There's like the warm gray, the green gray, the violet gray, the slate, you know, like, and it's from mixing, you know, colors. And so I think that, yeah. And even though I do have a lot of color in my work, like you were saying, you would just use like certain that just red, you know, maybe like a muted palette and then like one bright color, like the blue hair. There has to be like muted colors or, you know, soft colors, hues in order to make the other ones pop, or to, you know, kind of, or to make them appear a certain way. So, I mean, even though things like, there are people that just straight paint color, color, color. There's no like, you know, it's just all saturation. But there's definitely some muted stuff in mine. But I think it just makes the other ones pop more.
Yeah, true.
You know? Yeah. So you love color. Which what your friend meant to say is you're the artist that loves color so much that you cancel them all out.
Cool. Good idea. My next question is about your models. So when you were talking about them, I realized that you obviously know them and their stories. Sometimes, like all of us, we have these insecurities, and you know, our self-esteem is not great, you know, and so on and so on. You paint them in such a beautiful and powerful way. What is their reaction to those pieces when they actually see them? Because they see themselves through your eyes. So you obviously see these powerful women. Maybe they don't believe in that themselves, but then they see your piece, which portrays them
Yeah.
as powerful women. What is their reaction?
That's like just one of the most amazing parts. Because they just it is, you know, it's almost like I needed that, or you made me feel, you know, so, you know, you made me feel good, you know, like, and even the model that actually you could ask Renee because she's been a model plenty of times in my last series, but even the model that I was talking about, Bella, and you see her repeated in my work, and Bella's been modeling for me, and she's since 2020 or 2000, no, before that, 2018, 2019. But you know, even when I show her paintings, she's just like, I still can't believe it, you know? She's like, I still can't believe it. So I think for the most part, the reaction is really positive, and also the modeling experience, you know, a couple of times I've had models, and they recently actually, and two of them are, so most of the models I know, but there have been like a couple where I know, like, are acquaintances and maybe asked me to collab, or just I asked them. So I don't necessarily know their backstory as much, but you know, I would say like 75% are close friends of mine. And so two of those close friends that I recently had model just coincidentally had both broken up with their partners either the day before, the day, you know, they 2 days before, like long-term partners, just coincidentally. And, you know, and I'm like, you sure you want to come in here and do this photo shoot? You know, and they're just like, and they do it. And it is just, that's powerful for everyone, you know, and it's have that vulnerability and almost therapeutic. Yeah, it's therapeutic, I think, from what I hear. I have not been the model besides like taking test shots and maybe doing a few things, but it's rewarding. It's super rewarding. It's rewarding to hear that from them. And then also, I hear it from just people that, you know, see my work and they're like, it's very empowering. And, you know, like, I don't know. I feel it's the part that I didn't realize how much I would love about doing what I do, you know? So I just want to paint. I just want to paint, but now I can make people feel good too, which is pretty awesome.
Totally. And I think, you know, people can always relate to, you know, whatever we do. We always find our audience, and it feels empowering for them as well. And since you're normalizing grief and all the palette of emotions that we are suppressing very often, I think this is really
Yes.
too. So yeah.
Yes. Yes.
My last question is about you and Lady Vivian, your grandma. So you mentioned that she is an artist as well. So
Yes.
can you tell me a little bit more about her work and maybe how she sees your work, and what's the relationship between your art and her art?
Um, you know, I think she has that natural talent. And Lady Vivian, actually, she lived in Boston whenever I was born and didn't move to Memphis until I think I was maybe 11. And so basically that's why I called her Lady Vivian. She sent me a birthday card when I was very young, and I asked my mom, I was like, is that Lady Vivian? So I didn't know her as my grandmother, you know, but both my mom and Lady Vivian have always been extremely supportive of me pursuing art because, well, they're both creative, but like I said, Lady Vivian has that natural talent. She didn't create art as her career. So she kind of creates, I don't know if she has lately. The connection is basically through the genetics, I would say. That and our love of art, you know? So she's a huge impressionist fan. So anything I find, if I'm like, I went to the Van Gogh experience and, you know, hit up the gift shop for Lady Vivian. So things like that. And she's like, email me she's not on social media, or I think she might be, but sneaky. I think it's like a sneaky move. I don't know. But yeah, so I'll email her stuff. Yeah. So it's just, I just got the natural eye hand coordination. Yeah.
This is so cool. This is so funny. So I used to be a dancer. My husband was a dancer as well. Like for many, many, many years. We were teaching, we were choreographing as well. My dad always says, like, where did you get that from? Like, I can't move. And then I was thinking, and like my mom loved music, and you know, when she was young, she would go to a party, whatever was allowed in that time in this location, whatever, because of the former Soviet Union and stuff. So they didn't have like big parties, but whatever was allowed. But she loved dancing. But then I sort of like, I was digging deeper, and I found out that one of my grandmothers was a ballet dancer when she was young.
Oh.
She was dancing in the National Theater. She was
Oh,
actually part of,
wow.
like, the Nutcracker ballet performance, you know, when she was little. And that, well, not little, like, obviously not a kid, not the like.
Right. Younger.
Yeah. And then my other grandma, she was big in like gymnastics and stuff. And I was like, ooh, okay. So definitely like it runs, all those talents. And then I was thinking about painting because I never thought I could paint in the past. And then I started, and then I was getting better and better and better, and then I realized, wow, like why did I have that limiting belief for so many years until I was like 30 or whatever. And I realized that my grandfather painted just for
Oh,
fun,
wow.
for himself. But I have some of his sketches around the house, and it's so amazing to see that, and like going back to the roots and actually realizing, I was never like super supported in art. Like
Mhm.
my mom would allow me to do whatever, but I always picked, but it wasn't like super, oh, you can be a painter or whatever, or you can be a singer.
Right.
But then finding these connections to the past and to like the previous generation, that it actually was a part of our family, was quite interesting, and like both in dance and then in painting. So I always love hearing that.
Yeah, that's super. It is super interesting because it's like where you're from. And I love learning. I don't know if you've ever done a DNA test, but I did one kind of semi recently just to, and it's just interesting to learn, where you're from, but especially those kind of talents that you never knew about. Definitely some more of those. So that's really cool. You're like, oh, okay, this makes sense now. Yeah.
Well, Lillian, thank you so much for being here with me today. Renee, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Renee.
I
Thank
really
you. It's an honor.
really enjoyed talking to you and then learning more about your work. And you have to send me those photos of your earlier works because I really want to see them.
Yes, yes. I'm actually, you made me think of I'm in my living room. I have, it's a painting I'm super proud of that my grandmother, Lady Vivian, did. It was like a friend of hers in the neighborhood or a friend of their families, but I'll send that to you. It is rendered. It is just like, I'm like, Lady Vivian, you did that? And she doesn't have formal training. I'm like, wish I could be that good. So it's like, I want to send you that too. But yeah, it was such a pleasure. You're awesome. And thanks for I really love Women United. It's just, I don't know, I'm really happy to be in that artist directory too, because it's I think it's well done. And it seems like you're pretty organized about it too, which is nice. It's hard to be an artist and organized.
It is
Right.
crazy. And like tell me about it. It's like because I don't have that like natural artistic spirit. I used to be this like rational person who's super organized with everything at work, at my former job and stuff. I think it's easier for me to do that than like have the discipline in like everyday painting, for example. And it takes up a lot of time. My art is sort of still at the moment because I don't have the time for that. But it just makes me so happy, like working with other artists, learning more about them, and then just creating like opportunities for them because like I want that for myself as an artist too. So it's all like I feel like it's a big family. I don't want anything like super formal and like posh, and like polished because this is me. So
Because it's real. Yeah, I like Heather too. I mean, we've not really
oh
talked, but
yeah,
she seems awesome. So
amazing. She's
cool.
amazing, and it's funny like we've never met. She's in Texas. I'm in Central.
She's in Texas, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. I heard the voiceover for that.
for
What
smart.
was it? I was like, oh, she's a Southern gal too. All right.
She's
So
from, oh my gosh. She's not originally from Texas, but she lives there now. I think she's in Houston or Dallas. I'm not sure now. Um, but yeah, but she's amazing. She's such a genuine person and like full of energy, even though she has her struggles. She's like supporting everyone and really, yeah, I just love having her
awesome.
on my team. I wish I can meet her
That's
in
awesome.
person one day too.
One day. One day.
All
Cool.
right.
Well,
Well,
it's awesome talking to you. And yeah, I guess when you're gonna send this to me, when it's finished?
Oh, I
Or
will.
when it's
No, like tomorrow, maybe tomorrow or the day after. Yeah.
awesome.
All right.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. Bye. Have a good
Cool. Have a good rest of your night.
bye.
Bye.